Good day, everyone. It's Father Martin Padovani again being with you today. For those who haven't been listening, I once again want to tell you I'm a priest for 66 years. I've been doing counseling as a psychotherapist also for about 56 years. And this is what has enriched my priesthood in being able to help people, the blending of psychology and the Christian message, because Christ was the greatest psychologist, and it's all over in his scriptures. So today I want to go back to forgiveness and reconciliation. The reason I'm going back again is because there's so much misunderstanding in this area. So I want to go back again to reconciliation, which is a part of any relationship when there's differences, disagreements, or hurts. So forgiveness is, I can forgive you for what you did to me. And reconciliation means we're going back and we're going to work in the relationship and we trust one another. But there's a difference. Forgiveness is one thing, reconciliation is another. And so that we realize that we need to be able to realize sometimes there can be forgiveness, but there can be no reconciliation. So the first thing we want to deal with, number one, in terms of reconciliation, every relationship that is good has disagreements, hurts, disappointments, things we disagree with. That's a given. And some people are too simplistic about that. That's a normal aspect in a relationship. And the fact that we're close to one another and have an intimacy, this plays a role in what intimacy is, that we can work these issues out through good communication. We come back to communication. It's got to be open and honest. And it's got to be every day. Once we start letting one thing after another be buried and let it go and say, well, it doesn't matter, he wouldn't care, she wouldn't care. No. What happens in the deterioration of the relationship is that too many things pile on top of another, and disagreements, hurts, anger, disappointments. So I want to talk about the goodness and the strength and the importance of dealing with these disagreements, because being married and being one in one relationship doesn't mean we're exactly the same. We have disagreements. We're individuals, and we always have to maintain our individuality. And sometimes that brings us together where we have to compromise. Compromise means more communication. And this is what makes a marriage go on. Sometimes people will say, well, I never saw my parents disagreeing with anything. Well, either we weren't there or they hid them, which isn't the right thing. At least most of them shouldn't be hid, should be on the table. Others have to be hidden because of their own privacy there. But these things are important. Children learn how a marriage works and relationships work because we learn how to not only work together, but how do we deal with differences? It's a very important thing. Christ-like life with the disciples and with people, he had plenty of that. So the disagreements we want to be able to accept and realize they're part of a good relationship. And that means good communication. What do I think? And what do I feel? What do I agree with? What do I disagree with? They can be worked out. Sometimes it's a bit painful and difficult, but that again is something that can be done. A lot here depends on what? How did our parents communicate, disagree, and resolve things? Sometimes they didn't resolve anything, and sometimes they just blew up and fight, and they were either far apart or very close. And what happens in a marriage like that, or a good relationship? The relationship begins to deteriorate. So let's be realistic about that. Christ had a good relationship with his disciples and with a lot of people, but he had disagreements, and he spoke up and they spoke up. And that was the difference. And that's why they had an intimate relationship on an emotional basis. And that's what we want in all of our relationships that are good. We have marriage and then we have other relationships. But you know what? We don't have a lot of deep, intimate relationships because they take a lot of work and a lot of openness, a lot of honesty. There's different levels in our relationships. So that's what makes a good relationship and a good marriage. And that's why we also have forgiveness. When we hurt one another, that we say, I'm sorry, and we give each other time to heal, and we go on. The children should see this. We don't hide these things from the children so that they realize, oh, the parents are getting a divorce or arguing. No, we're going to stay together. This is part of relationship, like we're going to have disagreements with our children and things like that. And sometimes we disagree with the kids, and we we have to come to some sort of a compromise. They are the parents. They have to make decisions what's right for them or what is not right. The second aspect in reconciliation is the second point. What happens when there's some serious breaks, serious hurts, serious disappointments, which cause a lot of pain and a lot of sorrow? A lack of trust comes in. This is where they really need to sit down and talk and fight it out. And when the argument gets out of control, pull apart, come back another day, sleep it over. But don't let it go into the closet. Talk about it again, bring it up, and deal with it so that we don't have these things piling up with one after another. Because the more these things are not resolved and on the bottom, it's a cancer eating away at the relationship. And then when there is a blow up, everything comes out when it should have been done when it's supposed to. And there's always that little bit of a feeling, well, I don't have to bring this up. No, if it's important, we have to bring it up. Does she like, or he likes vanilla and the other one likes chocolate? We don't have to bring that up. That's something that's going to be natural. But these other issues about life, finances, how to deal with the children, who's going to work, who's not going to work, how are we going to handle the money, who's going to be the main person in charge of the money. But at the same time, they talk about it. But this thing is, when there's these serious breakups, that's when they really may need to get some counseling. And there can be all sorts of reasons why the serious breakups. Maybe one overreacts and curses and swears, and that this comes up time and time again. They may need to deal with this, and they may need to get some counseling. Don't be afraid of counseling. Everybody needs counseling. I'm in counseling every day. When I'm working with people, I'm also realizing, hey, that's some of me in there too that I have to continue to watch and take care of in my friendships with other people. And that's why we got to say, if there's a married clergy, better learn how to deal with conflict and disagreements, or it's not going to make it. And so keep that in mind when we're discussing the whole thing about a married clergy, which I'm in favor of. But let's be realistic about it. It doesn't mean it's a heavenly relationship, it's an earthly relationship with Christian principles that we follow. And sometimes there may be unfaithfulness, and it has happened maybe one or two times. Does that mean people have to get a divorce? In the old days, divorce would happen, or a separation emotionally between the two. That even though they're parents to the children, they're really acting as individuals. They're not connected. Their life has not been resolved. They may have forgiven one another intellectually, but emotionally, there's problems. And so that having an affair does not necessarily mean the end of the marriage. And that's where serious talking has to be done. I have worked with a number of couples where there was an affair. The affair was not really the issue. The issue was unresolved issues that they had with themselves. But we had to work with the affair thing because it leaves a lot of pain and disruption in the relationship. And the person that has been unfaithful has to realize it's going to take time for the other one to heal from all of this. But it can happen. I have worked with many situations like that, and the marriages were better afterwards because there happened to be things in there that they didn't deal with before. Difficult as it may be, it still is possible. Many times people have said to me after a divorce, they would say, gee, I wonder if maybe we really could have made it. Maybe if we had talked a little bit more, maybe if we had gotten counseling. That's a pretty good sign that they should have done something more. Get counseling, get people to help so that if you do break up, you know it's over, but you gave it a good shot. And the third aspect in reconciliation is the fact that there's been some serious problems that go on that were brought into the marriage from the families. Everybody brings baggage from their own families and also some good things so that the two are one. And that is the important relationship. A lot of times, because one partner has not really left emotionally from their parents' house, that inhibits the two of them to really be connected fully emotionally, and that will cause some problems. And there's a lot of issues that can come up and break it up. Sometimes where there's been a lot of unfaithfulness, one time after another, there's been extensive drinking, drugs, there's been a physical abuse, there's been a lot of, hey, those are serious, serious things. They may have been overlooked in their marriage preparation. That's why in marriage preparation, I give the couple more time than most other people who are working with the people in a pre-marriage, because I want them to understand their own family backgrounds. What were the good points? What were the not so good points? What were the bad things? How do we share that with one another so we know each other's background? So that this relationship is the most important relationship, and we don't have a foot back in the family of origin. And this is what is important. We don't let children, parents, relatives, the kids, the dog, you name it, get between this. This has to stay together. And if we let anything get between that, then we have to deal with that issue, whatever it may be. And if it was serious unfaithfulness, this is really important. So many times in marriages like this, there were a lot of unresolved issues that they brought into the marriage, things unresolved in their own lives and their own family backgrounds. And that is why it's very easy to get an annulment in the Catholic Church because of so much baggage from the past. And that means the sadness and the difficulty of going through the pain of divorce, which is not only painful for the couple, but for the children and the families. It's just not what they go through, but people want to understand the children are hurt and the families are hurt. And a lot of times, in dealing with a couple that's divorcing, is I try to bring the children in, if they're at a reasonable age, so we can talk what happened, so that they realize they were not the cause of this divorce, even though they may have been troublesome. The issue was between the husband and wife. And the children need to get in counseling and resolve that and not go around with guilt. And a lot of times, children and older children, they don't want to come in and talk about it. It's mom and dad's problem. No, it's our problems because the divorce affects the whole family and the extended family. And that's why the children have to be brought in. Unfortunately, I've had situations where the children did not want to come in. Isn't it interesting in how many marriages I was working with that I find that one or the other never dealt with the divorce of their own parents. They never really looked at it and got an understanding. And that's sad because they carry away a lot of unresolved issues and problems. And that has to be important. You carry it into your own marriage. And this is what we talk about, carrying baggage from backgrounds into the marriage. So you can see how important a lot of these things are. And this is where we need to be able to talk, to pray together, to pray individually, to get counseling, to get people to help us, and to realize sometimes marriages can be saved even because of problems. But some of the serious issues of drugs, continual unfaithfulness, uh, serious disappointments, not being honest, the marriage didn't have the ability to make it. And this is how annulments, I said, take place because they brought all this baggage into the marriage. And I've seen that in so many. I have written many uh, letters attesting to why a marriage failed. And practically all these people, they got annulments because the problems that they brought into the marriage were just too overwhelming. That's why that premarital counseling is so important. And of course, people preparing for a wedding, oh, I got to get this and this. And everything is given the importance and a lot of money. But what about premarital counseling, pre-Cana? The diocese requires a couple of counseling sessions before they marry. I went more than a couple. And if I thought there were some sticking points, I wanted more. I had a lot less divorces in my group of many people that I witnessed their marriage because I sent them through a tougher and more difficult and more intelligent understanding of one another. This is something that even the church with their marriage prep is needs to have a lot more with that. You know, The couples got very irritated with all the paperwork on a legal sense that comes from the church. Some of that I think can be boiled down. What can't be boiled down is the two understanding each other and each other's families, and also being able to point out what they're going to do in their marriage. How many children? Who's going to work? Who's going to take care of the money? How do we deal with money issues? These and many, many other things have to be said. You don't wait until you're married and say, gee, should we have children and how many? Hey, that should be done before the actual marriage. These and so many other stupid things that are neglected. Oh, there's a big wedding and there's plenty of people coming and we got a great hotel and great food and all of that. What difference does it make if they haven't taken care of the other? This gets the least amount of attention, and it's the most important aspect that they need. I remember a couple of marriages that on the night before the marriage, one of the spouses that was going to get married had an affair during the celebration before marriage. Well, the young lady found out about it, and after the celebration the next, at the end of the celebration, she said, well, I just want to let you know, thanks for being here, but Joe and I are going to get a divorce because he was sleeping with somebody last night before the marriage. Now, you're not going to make it with that kind of a business like that. I know that crazy stuff, right? Oh, I can't tell you about the amount of crazy things that are involved in with all of this. But these are some of the most important things. And when there is a divorce, the necessity to understand why there was a divorce, how did I fail, and how am I healing? Not what was wrong with the other person. What was wrong with me? Why did I fail in the marriage? Because if you want to remarry, you better know that. And the person that you marry again, he or she better know why their marriage failed. But do they deal with that? No. That's why the rate of divorce of second marriages is higher than the divorces with which is a single marriage. These are the things that happen. God forbid, communication is so important. Whether you're rich or poor, doesn't matter. If these issues are not dealt with before marriage, no marriage can survive with all of these kind of problems that go on. So the intimacy in a couple is that they can communicate and learn how to forgive. And on serious problems, they need to get some help. And on very, very serious problems, they need to realize there is no marriage. They were not capable emotionally and spiritually to connect with one another. And when they separate and go their own way and take care of the children and discuss that, how it's going to be done, that's an important thing too. But it's important for each person in that broken marriage to forgive the other and forgive themselves. Forgiving the other doesn't mean you're going to take them back. You forgive the other person because you need to let go of that hurt and anger and bitterness. And so you can get free and healed. And maybe in a year, or I should say 2 or 3 years, you can remarry and then you'll make it. But you better work out that stuff before time. The forgiveness so that you can move on. And even if you don't feel it, like I talk about in forgiveness in a few sessions before, that it's first of all intellectual, spiritual, it's intellectual, emotionally, and then spiritual. but you got to make that intellectual thing. Remarrying after a broken marriage and not resolving all of this and walking around with that hatred and everything, like, how can you remarry? What's going to happen to you and your whole emotional and spiritual makeup? What's going to happen to your children? These are sensible things. And I'm not even sharing everything, I'm sharing the most important ones. These are critical. And that's what I write in my books: Healing Wounded Emotions, Healing Wounded Relationships. These are precious things. A relationship requires a lot of work, a lot of interaction, a lot of communication, a lot of forgiveness, a lot of working things out. That's what intimacy is. It's not some dream about, oh, everything's going all right, we have no problem. That kind of a marriage doesn't exist. Amen. God bless you. We'll talk to you next week again. And don't forget to see if you can get a hold of my books, Healing Wounded Emotions and Healing Wounded Relationships. You can usually find them at the bookstores or at Amazon. God bless you. You're in my prayers. The Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.